Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time for another edition of the Esports Connection, where the esports industry goes to connect. Streaming to you live from, well, we'll call it the center of the esports universe today, here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center, with some of the strange creatures that live at the center of this universe, including our host, Harrison Griffith. Hey, Harrison.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for that lovely backhanded introduction. But like he said, I am your host, Harrison Griffith, and like you, I'm an avid esports enthusiast and player. So I put this show together as a place for people in the community to connect and meet each other, sort of like an online campfire where esports enthusiasts can gather and swap stories. We are talking to the people making it happen. Today, we have Jamel and Ron, both from UCI Esports. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Jamel, I guess we'll start off with you.
So I'm Jamel Hopkins. I'm the UCI Sports Community Coordinator. This is my first year in this full-time role. For the past 4 years, I was a student at UCI as shoutcasting manager, so part-time intern. So this will be, my 5th year working in esports, working with the program, and I'm excited to be here.
Sweet. Thank you very much, Jamel. Ron, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Hey, people listening. My name is Ronald Lee. Feel free to call me Ron. If you follow me online, you might be more familiar with me as Renanthra, which is a mouthful, so a lot of people call me Ren. Feel free to call me either. Feel free to call me a friend. I've been working here at UCI Esports for about 5 years now total. I've recently taken up the assistant director role. I've been doing that for 2 years now, just about. But prior to that, I was the head coach for the UCI Esports Overwatch team for 3 years. And before that, I was coaching professional teams for a hot minute as well. So, I've been in and around esports for a long time, collegiate for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you have a very diverse portfolio that I've seen. So you have so many job titles. You've like you said, the assistant director, coach. You worked in player development and broadcasting.
I was a player myself. And,
You're a competitor for your esports. You have your esports show, Northern Arena, right?
Northern Arena is the big company. I worked on a show called Heads Up Daily and Squad, so I'm no stranger to having like a headset on and being told to speak and kind of perform. But competition is where my heart is, and I think I ended up back there.
Gotcha. That's how a lot of people first find their passion in esports, I think, is as competitors. But I'd like to ask you, out of all these titles, all these jobs that you've had under your belt, which would you say are you most proud of?
Most proud of? That's difficult. I mean, I feel like you're putting me on the spot because they're different in their own ways. I think I'm proud of them in their own ways. I would say most fulfilling has always been my work with students. Part of me feels obligated, I have to say that in my current role. But it's hard to imagine it's not some sort of rush of being on stage or being a player. The worlds are different. So I'm going to take a cop-out answer and say I can't say like, one or the other is like my absolute most proud moment. I'll say that my blood has never ran colder than being like my first time on stage in San Diego when I was like 21, my first time ever competing like in front of a live crowd. But every day, like getting to work with all these amazing students and seeing them play and them get the same opportunity I have, it really makes me feel like a proud dad. And I'm not that old. I'm turning 28 at the end of April, but honestly, like 7 years in esports or so feels like an eternity, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I get that. I get that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now a question for Jamel. This is a little strange. I realize I never had done a double interview, but I guess I'll go back and forth. But I'll have some questions for the both of you. But for Jamel, I know that you are active in UCI Esports. You're both a student, and you also went through the certification program. Is that right? The esports certification program?
I did not.
You did
I
not?
did do that.
Oh, you went
Ron
through
did
that.
then.
Okay.
Yeah, I graduated I guess it's been a year now. So yeah, last year in the summer. But yeah, I've been a part of the program throughout like my pre-graduate life essentially, and it was honestly probably the best job I could have on campus. I mean, part of it was, working front desk staff, kind of like customer service stuff, but along with that was the internship opportunity. So commentating, which involved throughout the years mentoring high school kids in some cases, shoutcasting, teaching them, doing random odd jobs here and there. We wear a lot of hats, especially in esports. So helping out with events, even before I became community coordinator. and even some freelance stuff here and there. I did work as a caster for a couple other collegiate events, which was all in all, it was a really fun experience and very unique one at that too. I don't think anyone signs up for casting and expects all of that.
Yeah, Jamel's hot on the mic.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of shoutcasting experience, and I mean, like you mentioned, you even teach kids to shoutcast themselves. So how did you actually get started as a shoutcaster? How did you initially get involved?
So when I just graduated and I was applying to colleges, I saw UCI just had an esports program, and I was not good enough to be, like a player collegiately. So I thought, all right, second best thing is probably, working there in some capacity. So job listings posted, it was front desk and shoutcasting. I was like, oh, I'll just apply for both, see what happens. And then made it through the interview process. That was back with Damien, if you remember him, gave a little bit of overview of casting, who I looked up to in casting, because I followed competitive League of Legends throughout the entirety of my high school. And even though I was not able to play with the best, I was able to learn how to talk about the game. I was explaining it to my friends, and following competitive was something that was very, very interesting to me. So when I did get the casting role, it felt like a really nice fit. I was watching the same games. I was trying to take away the same things, just now it's a little more methodical, taking notes, doing more research on patches, game updates, all that stuff. But it's for those kinds of people that kind of just want to sit and think or be analytical about the game in a way, right? You can sit there and just have at it.
No, but that's a skill in its own right. I think making sure the games and stuff like that are digestible. Like, we were just talking to Paul before the show started, and he's like, I don't know what's going on. There's all these flashing lights, all these pretty colors, and I think it's a unique skill in its own to be able to articulate that and make it kind of succinct and have people follow along no matter what their experience level is. I've always approached the game at a very high level. And also, by the way, that's so real. The whole oh, I'm not good enough to be hanging here anymore. But we're similar in that respect. In that I take a lot of pride in my own ability to kind of break things down and make it educational. People can learn and grow from that. I know so many pro players that cannot explain why they make certain decisions. They're just like, I can do this, why not?
That's the importance of coaches too, because
totally.
you got they're basically just shoutcasters, but they're trying to make the content digestible for the player themselves, not for an audience necessarily.
Yeah, it's a unique skill to be able to, I think, dispense your knowledge in a way that people will respect and kind of take with them seriously. If you know, quote unquote, what the best play is, but you can't get across why it should be successful, then you're not gonna go very far in a coaching career or in a classroom or anything like that. So in the same vein, I think shoutcasting is really uniquely important because you have to do that all live. So on occasion we might have an absence in the arena, and they ask, hey, Ren, do you want to cast a game? And I said, I don't know if I'm quick enough on my feet for that. That requires a lot of preparation. So I've always found it really intriguing to see how our shoutcasters practice and study. They have loads of notes all the time. It takes a lot of preparation.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of educational experience in learning to shoutcast, and you talked a little bit about education there, which kind of brings me to my next question that I have, which is a little bit more open-ended and for the both of you, which is just generally about the value that esports has, both as the community aspect, along with competitive gaming, the value that it brings specifically to youth development. And I know you work at the collegiate level, but I think Jamel, you worked with younger age groups too as well, right?
Yeah, I used to work with XP League as I was assistant commissioner, and it also involved a lot of coaching or reaching out to find coaches, and these were kids that were you could get elementary, middle school kids. So you get a wide range of kids. Some kids have been playing, they'll be playing Fortnite since they could hold a controller. Other kids, they're this looks fun. You like video game, go enter this game you've never played with a bunch of people. And you definitely can see the potential in kids. Obviously there's a lot of downsides to those kinds of scenarios. Kids are mixed together with different skill levels, and if you don't have the right environment for them, it doesn't work. But when you have a lot of people that are passionate about not necessarily winning, but teaching kids just because you're good at this game doesn't mean or you should be saying everything all the time. You should be clogging communications. It's a lot about team building. The same things you see in other youth leagues like soccer, where everyone should play at the same time regardless of who's better, who's not, for example, or a lot of different things that you don't have to worry about at a hyper competitive level, like even collegiate or like amateur, where you're playing to win solely. You should have learned how to be a good teammate like in high school and all of that.
Yeah, this is a great time for this question because I'm actually in the midst of doing interviews where we talk a lot about student development. I would say like UCI Esports is firmly planted and at the right place, right time to kind of start building out like curriculum for students and competitive players and stuff like that. So esports is relatively new. It's super fresh and no one's done it before. And I think exactly approaching things like teamwork building or exactly how to play X game, Y game, and who are the best people to employ in those areas is fresh. Um, Honestly, we care a lot about doing things right, so we hire a lot of interns. I mean, like Jamel was one of them, right? He's living proof. But I think a lot of esports programs don't have the fortunate circumstances that we do, where we do get some funding from the school and we are able to kind of pay student interns and things like that, like a wage to do their job instead of just having volunteers. Our players are on varsity, and with that title, they get scholarships, right? So I think we hold ourselves to a really high standard, and with that, Mark Deppy, I mean, he came on I think last week. I think does an excellent job of picking the people with former experiences that might have gone through these trials before. Even though esports is so early, you've managed to kind of handpick me and a couple of coaches and things like that that have some sort of background in education and professional experience and kind of understand where the worlds merge. And he kind of sets off, lets us go free and kind of like spread our wings a little bit and kind of do what we think is right. But I've worked with students for like 5 years now, and it still amazes me to see like how they're able to marry their skills and passions in academia with like video games and what they can produce with that. It's been really, really cool.
Yeah, people don't realize the academic value generally that video games can have, but it's really the community aspect. I think that it really gets lost because I think that a negative stereotype that a lot of parents have of video gamers is that they're just these guys that live in their mom's basement.
So my mom.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's maybe all of our parents then,
Yeah.
but yeah, no. So there's this negative stereotype associated with gamers, but I feel like esports is just completely turns all of that on its head, where it forces you to develop
tell
a
me about it.
community,
Yeah.
forces you to learn teamwork and all these team building skills that you really wouldn't have if you're just playing online by yourself in your house. But I think that's so important for youth development, especially as I view it as you would view any after school program, like a sports program. It's like it's a good use of time. It's a nice extracurricular, and it's overall positive. Sorry, did you have something to say?
No, I just wanted to say like we talk to parents all the time.
Yeah.
Every day. I like 2 days ago I got I don't want to leak anything. We were talking to a new recruit for our Overwatch team, and his parents came in and they had like the same questions as anyone's parents do about games and stuff like that. So even though their son is like such a high level competitor, like he's competed in like tier 2 teams and tried out for tier 1 teams or like the Overwatch League and stuff like that, his parents were still like, so does he just come in here and like spend 8 hours at the arena every day? Like how's his studies gonna go? What sort of resources do you have to give him to make sure he's like gonna succeed here? We really don't want him to turn into like a couch potato, especially since he's made it to university and UCI is like not an easy school by any means. And we kind of have to give him the whole spiel of no, we support players with our team psychologist and our exercise physiologist, and he'll have me and I'm looking over his grades. Like we have an average amount of practice hours a week between like 8 to 10, and they were like flabbergasted. They were like, oh, so it's not just you put them in front of the game and then he like turns his brain off and you send him off into the wild. No, that's not further from the truth. So people are still getting there, right? Like I mean, Paul right here, living example. Right?
I'm one of them. I'm eagerly listening to all this because I do. I think I'm of that age. My kids played video games, and we all thought, is this just a waste of time?
Yeah, and I think that's totally justified given like the stereotypes and general messaging throughout the last few decades of what it could do to you. But it's highly mentally taxing, right? There's a lot of hand-eye coordination involved, a lot of teamwork building skills, and conflict resolution skills that people don't realize are involved. But the second we bring up like, hey, would you say that like soccer or hockey is a waste of time? They're like, no. Well, then maybe we boil it down a little lower. Well, would you say that if your son played a lot of chess, is that necessarily a waste of time? They're like, no. Well, that's like an intellectual activity, like that's worthwhile. I think bridging the gap that changes their perspective is the difficult part. It's not so much that video games in a vacuum is a problem. It's because they associate it with all these negative things. So part of our talks with everyone that comes in through the arena, especially parents, is saying, no, like video games teach you a lot more than you might think, and here are all the positive things that like people have done and have got to via esports, and we have that conversation like on the daily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like like you said, just dispelling those stereotypes. You're doing God's work over there at the esports arena for sure.
We try, yeah.
Because I mean, I wouldn't blame somebody who's Paul's age for having these
No, of course not.
perceptions of video games, because when they came out, they were already past the age where it's like, well, that's not age appropriate for me to play video games. I'm 40. They basically came out as toys initially,
Yeah.
right? Nintendo used to be a toy company, so that's kind of was their perception, and it's like, we don't really have
Yeah,
like,
these are things you grow out of, kind of.
yeah, exactly.
And that's
yeah.
not on people Paul's age. That's like, I
Mhm.
think that's just on, honestly, like marketing and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the zeitgeist is kind
Yeah.
of its own the contemporary battle is just I think again education, right? And then this is why collegiate's important. We're at the place where we change minds. It's where people go to really come into their own, is like the prime age. And every parent you talk to goes and tells their friends like, well when they're hanging out, the wine moms, right? They're taking drinks and stuff like that. It's like, well, what does your son do? Oh, my son competes in like this varsity team for League of Legends or Overwatch or what have you. Oh, well, that seems like a waste of time. And they're like, well, actually, like I learned X, Y, Z, and like it's step by step. I think we're fighting that public
we need
perception.
more people like that, where it's like
We need to talk to the
mostly-
moms.
Exactly. When you talk to the moms, you just hear, "Oh, all he does is play video games all day." Like I hate it, and
Yeah.
it's
Like
like
kids are already
this
on our
is-
side and they get it, right? It's
Mhm.
about it's
Exactly.
just making the extra jump.
because they actually have this more three-dimensional understanding of what video games like can do and how they can help you develop. Like me personally, it helped me develop like how to be calm in like a tournament setting. Like you mentioned, like your heart was probably
I'm
pounding
still not
that
there, man.
first time.
No,
Really?
I could be sitting at home. It's like my rank up game in like Valorant or something. My heart's pounding a mile. Yeah, but like it's been better.
It's
Right?
I think that video games have taught me to like almost conquer that, to the point where like it's helped me conquer other fears in my life too.
Mhm.
Like I was afraid of
Being cognizant of it is like at all is a big thing. It's like, why am I getting nervous
Mhm.
over a video game? Well, it's important to
Exactly.
me, and like I take pride in this and stuff like that. Like you learn a lot about yourself via video games. You might not in other things you might not have taken interest in.
Exactly, which is why it is so frustrating to try to explain this to people who like don't have this experience with it. But I mean, Jamel, you talked a little bit about your parents and how they
Yeah.
like didn't quite understand your your journey.
Mhm.
And we had Jay DeShong on here a few weeks ago, and he talked about a similar experience where his parents basically were like, I don't know about this whole esports thing, like basically up until he was bringing home a paycheck
Mhm.
that he could
Yeah, that's
show
what happened
them.
to me. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I feel kind of bad now because they're probably gonna listen to this after. But that is,
I'm
they
sorry,
were no.
Jamel's
They were
parents.
not very happy, in general about how much time you spend playing video games, and because it is definitely an outside-in perspective, it is just someone sitting there playing the game. And back then, it was a lot of me. Just I would watch a lot of like competitive league. I would sit there try to figure out why they do this, why they do that. Essentially, like analyst work, looking back on it and things like that. But to someone outside, you're just staring at a computer for odd hours a day. And part of it is that it is hard to see the connection of how does this go towards a career or how does this go towards a job until you have someone sit there and kind of explain it to you. And I think one of the happiest times I did have was when my dad did become accepting of it, and he was like, why are you watching this game? What's the significance? And it's like, oh, well, when you really layman's terms, they go break the base open, and then I was like, that's something you can understand. I go, why do we care about this team versus this team? Go, well, this person is playing very aggressive. His personality is being very aggressive, or like solo killing, winning his lane, and then going out. Like, explain those kinds of things. And I think part of that influenced me as a commentator, because the joy I got from explaining to my dad, who tried to make his interest in the game known to me, and I really enjoyed breaking down and explaining to him. So to them, I think they really were supportive of it. Like, obviously, when I brought in a paycheck, but more so when they saw that it's not just playing a game, it's not just trying to be someone that plays the game competitively. There is a plethora of opportunities beyond just being really good at the game. And it is, there can be commentary, it can be a lot of adjacent stuff. Like, there's graphic designers that work for esports organizations, there's
Business
broadcast,
administration,
business
project
admin-
management, event
partnerships.
organizing, everything. Anything you can do, any job you might have, there's a way to marry video games with it. And like I shout out to Hitmarker. There's like a graphic they have that I use like all the time with my interns or arena staff and stuff. I'm like, hey, are you interested in any of this? And I like have their newsletter come in and they're like, hey, here are the hot jobs right now. I'm like, guys, maybe you know, let's do a resume workshop. Let's talk a little bit about your cover letter. Let's see if you can get these out, because we want them to graduate, find good jobs, and then in turn, you know, like that's another connection for us. Like we're building out the industry slowly, a piece at a time, and we're seeing that every day. Like our fresh batch of students this year graduates in like less than 3 months, and then they're off into the wilds working at all these pro orgs or tech companies, or maybe not, and that's okay too. But they're able to take all the experiences and lessons and skills they've learned here and transition them into like practical, applicable things that'll get them paid, and that's what parents are worried about all the time, like Jamel and mine. Yeah, my story is not as neat. I have a philosophy degree that I wasn't gonna ever really use anyway.
Yeah.
So I stumbled upon esports in like a miraculous way, like almost by accident, incidentally. I wanted to be a teacher, and I guess coaching is like right there. It's like on the periphery, very, very close. And I got that opportunity by happenstance. Like I went to a local pub that like the total prize pool for that tournament might have been like $200, maybe at best. But coincidentally, Huck LaRanger was there. Sorry, Chris LaRanger. He goes by Huck online. He's a professional StarCraft 2 player. And at the time, he was a co-owner for like an amateur Overwatch team. And they had gone just for like shits and giggles, kind of for practice, partly, and maybe like a couple of drinks, right? They thought it'd be an easy tournament, but me and my collegiate team showed up. We played and we actually won. Ooh. So he was like, "What the fuck? Like, how did this happen? This should never in any universe happen." So we struck up a conversation. He's like, "Who are you? Who are you guys?" And then I schmoozed my way into my first analyst job. So completely by accident, kind of rolled into being involved with someone pretty important, and knew what they were doing. But had that not happened, I probably would have done similar to Jamel, look out for like internship opportunities or something. But I was in Canada, and those don't really exist at the time. Canada's slowly playing catch up. I think the East is slowly playing catch up, but all the big developers and stuff are here in the West. So I was like, if this punches me a ticket to California at some point, I'm all for it. And look at me now. Yeah, lucked out.
Yeah, no, I mean, you said a lot there, but you did kind of delve into my last or one of my last questions, which was the kind of job opportunities that exist at Irvine. You know, we did talk a lot about coaching and shoutcasting a lot, but you also just went into the other like, you know, there's a lot of valuable skills that you develop by doing this, like managing social media, doing camera work. I've been working in talk radio for like a couple months, and I've been forced to learn all these new things, you know. And that's what you just got to put yourself in an environment where you're forcing yourself to learn these new things, you know. And I feel like that's what's really important. But I guess you really did already go into that, so I can move on to our last question, which is a little bit more lighthearted. I just wanted to ask you what your favorite video game of
this
all
is not a lighthearted.
time
You can't ask this and then preface it
All
by
right,
saying,
this
"Oh, this is
is-
a lighthearted question."
this is
this
different
is serious business.
asking what the best video game is.
No, that's
okay?
even. Oh my god, we
right.
only have a half hour.
All right,
of this.
we're changing it. What's the best video game of all time? Doesn't
my
necessarily have to be an esport.
You're trying to get me crucified on social media.
Yeah,
what
that's
doing,
why you're going
actually.
last. Jamel's going first.
God
What's your-
damn.
Oh, I got the cop out. I just say League of Legends, and I'm
League of
home free.
Legends?
Like League of Legends, I think
Red flag.
when you think about this is more, I guess, an esports biased opinion, but when you look at the industry overall, I think League of Legends is what really got most of the eyes onto it.
That's fair.
Like everyone at one point was playing League of Legends. Now they're playing Valorant, which is owned by the same company, right? But everyone I knew played League of Legends at one point. Whether they still play now, whether they've quit, everyone's like watched League at some point if they've been in esports. And
You've heard of Faker,
yeah,
even if you don't play League.
you go over to Korea, he's like on billboards and stuff. A lot of players are on billboards. It is just a title that's worldwide, and I think every company is trying to play catch up with what Riot has. They want to make a game as big as League, and no one really can right now. People are trying.
I'm so happy Riot Games has more than one game now.
It took them
Yeah.
a couple years, but there is new game.
Yeah, they have like 3-4 games now. It's pretty cool. Nah, I refuse to answer this question because I think at Broad, like not esports related, since he took probably close to my answer, and I have a biased one in Overwatch because it's given me my whole life, but I think esports is one facet of video games. Obviously, it's the competitive side, and all people really relate to having a competitive outlet for the first time in their lives via esports. If you're a competitive person but didn't like traditional sports, well, what was the outlet for you, right? Like if you didn't like tennis or soccer or football, or badminton, whatever, right? Now, well, I like video games and I have a competitive nature. This really appeals to me, right? I was one of those kids. I tried volleyball and basketball, hated it. I'm short. I get like winded fast. It wasn't for me. My coach was really rude. I still have a bone to pick with him. I might come back one day. Say, look at me now. I'm doing your job, but better. But yeah, like I think from a competitive side that makes sense. But video games are so much more than that. They're pieces of art for some, safe spaces for others, right? Relief. There's like tools for accessibility for some. There's like all these genres like horror, action, RPGs, simulation. I think it's hard to like say, okay, what's the best or what's your favorite, because for every person there's a different reason why video games are attracted to them, or there's a different reason why this is like their calling. Like my answer, unironically, outside of the competitive part of my personality, if I could separate me into like halves, it might just be Minecraft, because I could play that forever and explore, I guess, every facet of my personality, like the creative type, the survival horror person in me, the social person in me that wants to build a community. If I really wanted to be competitive, I could play like Bed Wars or something crazy.
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, isn't it the best-selling game of all time?
It is, and it makes sense because it's just got, like
It's
you said,
everything.
it's got all those.
It has
genres in
educational
it.
value. See, I'm bringing it back. Look at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's a lot
Did
there. I
it
didn't
all.
think you were gonna bring it to that deep, but my answer: Super Castlevania 4, baby.
Okay.
Woo!
I mean, he knows
No,
who
I'm
he
just-
is.
Yeah,
He is who
No,
he is.
But on a more serious note, I do think that it's like what you pointed out is very important, because like if I asked you, what do you think the best cereal is of all time, you'd be like, okay, well, we can't just pick a best cereal. We have to jump
I
them up
can.
by category.
Cinnamon
We're gonna-
Toast
Cinnamon
Crunch.
Toast Crunch. It's Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Harrison.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch, more
Okay,
like it.
all right.
No, I'm
Okay.
just kidding. I'm trolling. But you would break it up into like chocolatey, fruity cereals, because you can't, you can't
Right.
compare.
How do you want fruity
Fruity
cereal?
Pebbles. I mean, hey,
Just have
it
fruit
exists.
for breakfast.
It exists. There's a market for it. I
Both
will
my
say.
side. You heard that? Like, little chocolate. He's like, he's right.
I'm old and I'm Irish. I eat Lucky Charms. So there you
Lucky
Lucky Charms are my second favorite.
go. Oh, there you go.
All right, Lucky
I need
Charms
brownie
are up
points
there.
with Paul. I need to get invited back.
All right, well, you heard it here, folks. Cinnamon Toast Crunch, best cereal ever, and Super Castlevania 4, best video game ever.
Sure.
I think that's
Agree to
where we're at.
disagree?
We got one of them.
Yeah, we're not coming back.
Well, thank you all for tuning in. This has been the Esports Connection, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Well, there you have it. If that's not a good reason to come back, find out the best cereal. We got more questions like that. Join us each and every time as we explore the Esports Connection, where the esports world comes to connect. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio. Streaming live from our studios here at the University of California, Irvine's Beal Applied Innovation Center, the center of the esports universe.